Welcome to Story Time with Artistica Art. I have this collection of the Wizard of Oz book, and everybody knows the first book. Story has been done so many times, The Wizard of Oz. So let's start with the second book, The Marvellous Land of Oz, Chapter 1. Tip manufactures a pumpkin head. In the country of the Gilletins, which is in the north of the land of Oz, lived a youth called Tip. There was more to his name than that, for old Mombi often declared that his whole name was Tip-a-Terius. But no one was expected to say such a long word. Then Tip would do just as well. This boy remembered nothing of his parents, for he had been bought, when quite young, to be reared by the old woman known as Mombi, whose reputation, I am sadly to say, is none of the best, for the Gilletin people had reason to expect her of indulging in magical arts, and therefore hesitated to associate with her. Mombi wasn't exactly a witch, because the good witch who ruled that part of the land of Oz had forbidden any witch to exist in her domain. So Tip's guardian, however much she might aspire to working magic, realized it was unlawful to be more than a sorceress, or at most a wizardess. Tip was made to carry wood from the forest that the old woman might boil her pot. He also worked in the cornfield, hoeing and husking, and he fed the pigs and milked the four-horned cow. That was Mombi's special pride. But you might not suppose he worked all day, for he felt that would be bad for him. When sent to the forest, Tip often climbed trees for the bird eggs and amused himself chasing the fleet white rabbits or fishing in the brooks with bent pins. Then he would hastily gather his armful of wood and carry it home, and when he was supposed to be working in the cornfield and the tall stalks hidden from Mombi's view, Tip would often dig in the gopher's hole, or, if the mood seized him, lied upon his back between the rows of corn and take a nap. So, by taking care not to exhaust his strength, he grew as strong and rugged as a boy may be. Mombi's curious magic often frightened her neighbors, and they treated her shyly, yet respectfully, because of her weird powers. But Tip frankly hated her, and took no pains in hiding its feelings. Indeed, he sometimes showed less respect for the old woman than he should have done, considering she was his guardian. There were pumpkins in Mombi's cornfield, lying golden red among the rows of green stalks, and these had been planted and carefully attended that the four-horned cow might eat of them in the winter-time. But one day, after the corn had all been cut and stacked, and Tip was carrying the pumpkins to the stable, he took notion to make a jack-o'-lantern and tried to give the old woman a fright with it. So he selected a fine big pumpkin, one with a luscious orange-red color, and began carving it. With the point of his knife, he made 2 round eyes, a 3-cornered nose, and a mouth shaped like a new moon. The face, then completed, could not have been considered strictly beautiful, but it wore a smile so big and broad, and was so jolly in expression, that even Tip laughed as he looked admiringly at his work. The child had no playmates, so he did not know that boys often digged out the insides of a pumpkin jack, and in the space thus made but a lighted candle to render the face more startling. But he considered an idea of his own that promised to be quite effective. He decided to manufacture a form of a man who would wear this pumpkin head, and to stand it in the place where old Mombi would meet it face to face. And then, said Tip to himself with a laugh, she'll squeal louder than the brown pig does when I pull her tail, and shiver with fright worse than I did last year when I had ague. He had plenty of time to accomplish his task, for Mombi had gone to the village to buy groceries, she said, and it was a journey for at least 2 days. So he took an axe to the forest and selected some sprout straight saplings, which he cut down and trimmed of all their twigs and leaves. Often these he would make the arm and legs and feet of this man. For the body he stripped a sheet of thick bark from around a big tree, and with much labor fashioned it into a cylinder and about the right size, pinning the edges together with wooden pegs. Then, whistling happily as he worked, he carefully jointed the limbs and fastened them to the body with pegs, wilted into shape with his knife. By the time this feat had been accomplished, it began to grow dark, and Tip remembered he must milk the cow and feed the pig. So he picked up his wooden man and carried it back to his house with him. During the evening, by the light of the fire in the kitchen, Tip carefully rounded all the edges of the joints and smoothed the rough places in a neat and workmanlike manner. Then he stood the figure up against the wall and admired it. It seemed remarkable tall, even for a full-grown man, but that was a good point in a small boy's eyes, and Tip did not object at all to the size of his creation. Next morning, then he looked at his work again. Tip saw that he had forgotten to give the dummy a neck, by means of which he might fasten the pumpkin head to the body. So he went again to the forest, which was not far away, and chopped from a tree several pieces of wood, which to complete his work. When he returned, he fastened the crosspiece to the upper end of the body, making the hole through the center to hold upright the neck. The bit of wood which formed his neck was also sharpened at the upper end, and then all was ready. Tip put on the pumpkin head, pressing it well down into the neck, and found that it very well. The head could be turned to one side or the other as he pleased, and the hinges of the arms and legs allowed him to place the dummy in any position he desired. Now that, declared Tip proudly, is really a fine man, and it ought to frighten several screeches out of old Mumbai, but it would be much more lifelike if it were properly dressed. To find clothing seemed no easy task, but Tip boldly ransacked the great chest in which Mumbai kept all her keepsakes and treasures, and at the very bottom he discovered some purple trousers, a red shirt, and a pink vest which was dotted with white spots. These he carried away to his man and exceeded, although the garments did not fit very well in dressing the creature in a dainty fashion. Some knit stockings belonging to Mumbai and a much worn pair of his own shoes completed the man's apparel, and Tip was so delighted that he danced up and down and laughed loudly in the boyish ecstasy. I must give him a name, he cried. So good of a man as this must surely have a name. I believe, he added, after moments of thought, I will name the fellow Jack Pumpkinhead.